Hey, how are you? All right. Hey, George, come here a minute. I know this man right here, slide that up here, please. That'd be great. This man right here does all my leg work. His name is George Ranville. He is the Vice President of Alternatives in Motion. We found it's very important to introduce him because a lot of people don't know how important he is to the work of Alternatives in Motion and also the speaking in the books. When we say we co-authored those books, we actually tri-authored them. He does a lot of work on them, and if you need anything, and I'm busy, catch him and he'll help you. He's fantastic. Clap for him. How you doing? All right, now we gotta do a little homework here, little homework. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, you need to understand something. I believe in respect. I'm real big on that, and I'm not concerned that I'm not going to get it. I'm going somewhere else with it. But I think political correctness has ruined our society. I think political correctness is important, and it's important to be respectful, but you need to understand something. If I tell a joke that pertains to my disability, and you don't laugh, you're hurting my feelings more than if you would laugh. If I tell a joke, you're supposed to laugh, okay? Don't make me get up. There you go. Because that's what it's all about. You have to have the ability to laugh at yourself and with yourself because it's the best medicine in the world. So for the next 2.5 hours or so, just kidding, we're going to laugh. We're going to share. We're going to learn. I'm included there. We're going to think. We're going to have fun. I'm going to take you on a journey that's very special and very near and dear to my heart. The only thing I ask is that you listen to me. Don't talk to your neighbor, because if you're doing that, you're taking away the most important thing they can have, and that is an education. Got me, guys?
She's talking to me.
It doesn't matter. So with that, I'll begin. Hey, what am I sitting in? A wheelchair. So that means there's something that I can't do. What can't I do? Bummer. I can't? Okay, I can't walk. When you look at me, you know I have cerebral palsy. That was in the introduction, right? Okay, it wasn't? Well, you know now. But in looking at me, do I look like I have cerebral palsy? No, not stereotypically, no. When you look at me, what does it look like? What happened? What, Rodney? Car accident. Rodney, do you realize it depends on the city I'm speaking in? It does. If I'm in Grand Rapids or Lansing, it's a car accident. If I'm in Chicago or Detroit, what is it? Gunshot. Yeah, drive by. Look at that preppy guy. If I'm in Iowa, what is it? Pitchfork. Farming accident. It's neither. When I came into the world unexpectedly. Let me clarify. My mom's pregnant at 5.5 months. She knows it. Good thing. She's vacuuming the living room floor. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, she gets a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. She said she first thought it was gas. She thought she had to fart. But the pain got worse. So she clutched her stomach. She hit the floor. And that's the last thing, of course, she remembers. Now, you'll have to forgive me because this is where the story gets sketchy for me. Because I don't remember either. So the neighbor comes over, let's say 3 hours later, to borrow a cup of sugar, finds my mother passed it on the floor, finds my 2 older sisters running around the house, not knowing it's even Tuesday, that's how little they were. My neighbor calls an ambulance. The ambulance rushes my mother to Blodgett Memorial Hospital, which is now called Spectrum East. Okay? My mother gets to the hospital, and while she's there, my father gets called in from the C&O Railroad where he was a machinist. As he gets to the hospital, this is what he's told. Your wife, Maria, is in critical condition. Her appendix has ruptured. You'll be lucky if she lives. The appendix must come out immediately. Your baby is dead. There's no way your child can make it through this. If you're going to pray for somebody, you better pray for your wife, because you're not going to be a new father today. My mom went under the knife. My dad went into the chapel. She made it through surgery. She's in recovery. And guess what woke her up? She went into labor. I come into the world 3.5 months premature, 1 pound, 4 ounces. 1 pound, 4 ounces. I'm immediately placed in an incubator where I spend the first 3 months of my existence literally clinging to life. My parents took me home. And they said, man, you were one funky baby. You didn't show signs of life. You cried because you sounded like you were in pain. We went to a doctor periodically, and the doctor said, look, your son will be okay. He's a preemie. It'll take time for him to develop. Give him time. Well, as time went on, that story began to change. And at 18 months, to show you where we were as a country, the Beatles were taking America by storm. We had just lost John Kennedy as president. My parents sat at a doctor's office on Michigan Street in the Towers Medical Building and heard these words. Your son will never walk, never talk, never eat by himself. He's going to be completely and totally dependent upon you and society for the rest of his natural life. In essence, they were saying this: no Little League baseball, no rocket football. He will not learn to drive a car. He won't go to school. If he does, it'll be a special school. He will not graduate. He will not give you grandchildren, get married. Not in that order. Switch those two around. You're supposed to get married first. Got it? Your son Johnny is worthless. It's our recommendation that you take your son, take your lifeblood, and place him in a home for the handicapped. Let the state take care of him. Go home and have normal children. Huh. Hey, Randy, because you're a good friend of mine, I love the man dearly. He's cool. How many years have you been in education? 24. Teaching, not like before, okay? 24. 24 years in education. How many students have crossed your path? How many lives have you touched? Thousands. Have you ever seen a normal student?
Not yet.
No. You know why? Because you're not normal.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. In our dictionary, the Webster's define normal as I don't even know. And I don't even care, because the definition doesn't fly. There's really no such thing as normal. Why did my parents keep me? Why'd they keep me? Look at me, please, kids. Stay with me. Are you with me? Cool. Why'd they keep me? They love me. Here we go. With the love stuff again. They loved you. How many people believe that? How many people believe that love conquers all? Aha. Sir, does it really?
May not be a reality, but it's a dream that needs to come true.
Well, but you didn't answer my question. Does love conquer all? Idealistically, yes, you're right. It would be wonderful if that dream came true, but it doesn't, does it? Because if it did, sir, people wouldn't leave their children, right? That doesn't mean they don't love them, but it goes farther than that. It talks about responsibility. My father said to me, we kept you not only because we loved you. Yes, we loved you. You were ours. We wanted you in the first place. Of course we loved you. But we didn't know you yet. I knew by the time you were 17 there were going to be moments that I didn't love you very much. And he was right. However, it went farther than that, son. You were my responsibility. And that's why we kept you. But they kept me for a couple of other reasons. My parents were Dutch. Dutch people don't give away anything. And in being Dutch, they were immigrants from the Netherlands. They had only been in this country They came to America for a bright new future. They had only been in this country for a few short years, and they didn't know the language. There was a barrier there. And they heard the words spastic ataxic cerebral palsy, and they thought I was gifted. And they said, yeah, thank you very much, and they took me home. Now, and amazingly, that's where the journey begins. Because when my parents took me home, when they decided that they must uphold their responsibility as a parent, that's when the miracle happened. I remember waking up. My mother's voice would often beat the alarm clock. And as I looked up, her beautiful blue eyes looked down upon me. The lines of wisdom in her face, her gorgeous blonde hair, that Cracker Jack smile. And she'd say, "Good morning, my miracle son." And she'd pick me up and lay me on the floor and strap me down in cold metal shackles from my waist all the way down to my ankles. She locked my legs in a prison called braces. And if you don't know what they are, think back in your mind the movie Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump wore the metal shoes, the metal legs with the shoes at the bottom, the high-top brown shoes. And as he ran, they fell off. And my mother strapped those braces into me and locked my legs down straight, threw me over her shoulder, my torso limp over her back like a sack of potatoes, my legs straight out like a battering ram. She walked down the steps, out the back door, into the driveway, where my father had cemented parallel bars underneath the basketball hoop, which made it very difficult to go in for a layup. Thanks, Dad. And in those parallel bars, my mother would stand me up. And she'd walk over to the garage wall, where on a bent nail hung a mutteklopper, which is Dutch for rug beater, wound out of wicker, looked like a tennis racket with holes in the head, used to beat the dust out of rugs. But she didn't beat the dust out of rugs. You know what she did with it? She stood behind me. And as I walked, I would walk on my toes, and she'd clip my heels with that rug beater, and she'd begin to scream, "Come on! Move it! Move it! I believe in you! We're going to make a miracle happen today! Move it! Lighten up, Ma." And she'd push me for an hour. And I mean, she'd nail me, just hammer me, keep at it. And when I was done, she'd put me in a warm bath, and she'd move my legs back and forth. And she looked at me and said, "I don't care if you have cerebral palsy. I don't care if you're never going to walk. You're my son. You're gorgeous. You're cute. And someday, you're going to change the world. But you need to believe in yourself, and you need to know that God and the Lord is on your side." And she pushed me. I remember sitting on the couch with my father watching Wide World of Sports. And they televised a sport called Acapulco cliff diving, where these men in Speedo bathing suits, which I could never figure out, would stand on the cliffs and dive and fly through the air like a hawk and land into the water barely making a splash. And I said, "Dad, I want to do that." He said, "All right, let's start with a diving board." So he took me down to the local swimming pool. He said, "Son, if you want to go off the diving board, you better climb the ladder." "What do you mean?" "Well, you want to go off the high dive, right?" "Well, I guess so." "Get over there, get on the ladder, pull yourself up. You've got arms, you can move your legs. Get over there." So I walked over the ladder and I grabbed hold. I grabbed hold with my other hand, I began pulling myself up. As I got to the top, my foot slipped out from underneath me. I tumbled backwards, and I slammed into the floor. The room spun around. I felt as if I had to hurl. And I opened my eyes to this. "Yeah, hey, Dad, how you doing?" "I'm all right, I hit my head." "Yeah, I don't see any blood. You okay? Anything broken?" "I don't think so, I hit my head." "All right. Can you get up?" I don't think so. I hit my head. Give me your arms. And he picked me up. And he felt the back of my head and he said, yeah, that's going to leave a mark. No, I added that. He said, all right, you okay? I'm a little dizzy, but I'm all right. Get back on the ladder. What are you, nuts? I just smashed my melon on the floor, man. Yeah, but if you don't get back on the ladder, you're never going to do it again. This time I'll go with you. Dad, what do you mean you'll go with me? If you walk below me on the ladder and I fall, I'm going to fall over the top of you. You're not going to catch me. You're going to watch me fall. Shut up. Okay. Now, you need to understand something. As I say, shut up. In a Dutch immigrant family, when my father came across the boat and landed on Ellis Island, the first words he heard as an immigrant were shut up. So he thought it was a term of endearment. And the word shut up ended every conversation in our home. When mom and dad said shut up, the conversation was over. So I went back to the ladder. I began pulling myself up to the top. And as I got up to the top, I felt the hand grab my armpit. The other hand grabbed the other side. I looked down, and I watched my feet go off the step. And I thought, man, I hope my dad's holding me. And we walked to the end of the board. He placed my toes on the edge of the board, and with a deep, dark chuckle, pushed me off the edge. And as I belly flopped into the water, I didn't think that jerk, I'm going to grow up in a dysfunctional family. Two things ran through my head. I now know why they wear Speedos. I hope someone gets my shorts, which are floating at the top of the water. And wow, that was fun. Let's do it again. You see, as a kid, all I wanted to do was have fun. All I wanted to do was have a chance. I just wanted to be a kid. Make sense? And when they said to my parents, he won't do this and he won't do that, they said, wait a minute, son, if you want to do something, you need to learn to adapt and change when necessary. You need to learn to adapt and change when necessary. So I want to play baseball. How would a kid like me, little Johnny, play baseball? Huh? I can sit on my knees, right? What position can I play? Catcher. And my arms are like cannons because I use my arms to do everything. Okay? I use them to get on the toilet. I use them to get out of my wheelchair. I use them to get in the car. My arms are strong. I used them to walk on my crutches so I could throw to second base off my knees. Okay? Now, when it came time to hit, I'm in the batter's box. I'm 2 foot tall. I've got no strike zone. Every ball they threw was up high, but I can't walk because they can't walk me to first base. So the coach said, hey, kid, bunt down the third base line, and we'll pick the fastest kid to run the bases for you. Today, folks, they call that adaptive physical education. And what that really is a bunch of kids saying, Johnny wants to play, he's our friend, this is how we're going to do it. So I got to play baseball. I got to play rocket football. Football is the greatest sport ever invented by mankind. Nothing like controlled lead balance. I stood on my crutches at nose tackle. And when the ball was snapped, I dropped those crutches and grabbed onto the center's pants. They never called holding on me because they felt sorry for me. And if the center happened to roll me off of him, I'd get on my knees and just start tackling people. I didn't even care if they were on my team. One time I got to sack the quarterback. As I fell over the center's back, he stood up, throwing my legs over him, knocking the quarterback on his butt. It was a great play. That's how I played rocket football. Nobody ever said no. How do you think the kids in my neighborhood treated me? How did my peers treat me? Someone tell me. How was I treated by the kids in my neighborhood? Huh? Why, sir? You're a genius. You think I was mocked or teased? You think I was, who said yes? Why? Because of my disability. Why do people tease? Or let's take it farther. Why does prejudice exist? Huh? Ignorance or what else? Not only ignorance. Say it again. You are a genius. Fear. People are afraid of what they don't understand. The only reason prejudice exists in our world, the only reason racism exists in our world, is because people don't take the time to understand each other. It's that elementary, and it's that simple. And it's really annoying that they don't take the time, because it is that simple. However, if they do understand, something amazing happens. And it's my job, as well as theirs, to help them understand. There's a knock at the door. We're having dinner. My mother answers the door. Yes, what can I do for you? Mrs. Tuitel, we're having a go-kart race, and I forgot to build a go-kart. Can I borrow Johnny's wheelchair? Sure, go ahead. Mom! Shut up. Okay. And to give away my wheelchair to the neighbor, and what does that say about my tool, my wheelchair, the tool to get around? What does it say about it? It's not only a toy, but it's secondary to the person. The chair doesn't matter, because they're like, well, what if it breaks? We'll fix it. Have fun with it. On the playground at Eastern Orthopedic, when I wore my braces, or at Breton Downs Elementary, guess what? I was either the cowboy with the chaps or the robot. We used the things we had to adapt and play, and nobody cared. But when I was mainstreamed, when I was taken out of the special school, I used the term for lack of a better word, and put into the regular school, once again, I used the term for lack of a better word. How was I treated by the teachers? They took it easy on me. Little side note, I forgot to mention, when I was mainstreamed in 1974, I was the first person mainstreamed out of Eastern Orthopedic into East Grand Rapids schools. Originally, my parents didn't want to send me to East because my sisters were going to the Christian schools. So my parents said to the Christian schools, we want Johnny to have a Christian education. I have tuition, I'd like to pay it. And you know what they said? No. He's not welcome here. We have steps. What happens if he's got to go to the bathroom? He doesn't learn like the other kids. They wouldn't let me in. They would not let me in. And so my parents said, all right, we'll send him to the public schools. My father said, I'm never going to the Christian Reformed Church again. And he went to the Reformed Church. Way to live on the edge, Dad. And I went to the public schools. I went to East Grand Rapids. The kids didn't tease me because they knew me, but how'd the teachers treat me? Huh? Well, actually, it depends. It was one extreme or another, and I'm going to give you two stories. I am in geometry class in 10th grade. And it's the first day of class. I can wheel or walk. I wheeled into class. The teacher looks up. This is an exact quote. Oh, my God, you're in my class. Yep, I guess I'm in your class. Well, what do I do? Well, let's see. This is third hour. You teach geometry. Can you learn like the other kids? I don't know. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. So for the next 40 minutes, every 5 minutes, I asked her a question that had nothing to do with geometry. She tried to answer every one. The next day, I come walking into her class in my crutches, and she flips. Oh, you're learning to walk. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Last night I was watching Billy Graham, and look, now I can move my legs. So I sit down at my desk, and she's up there talking about some sort of obtuse line, and I'm half asleep in my chair in the front row right by the window. And the window's cracked open. And something wakes me up. I can smell fresh bread coming from East End Pastries off Wealthy Street coming in through the window. And as I opened my eyes, I realized something. Where there's bread, there's donuts. And I love jelly donuts. WWJD, we want jelly donuts. Just a joke, it's okay. I told that at a church last week, and they're oh. So I pop up into my desk, and I looked at my neighbor, and I said, Danny, when I hit the floor, get me out of here. Okay, dude. So, anyone here know anyone with cerebral palsy? What's spasticity? Well, spasticity is an involuntary muscle reaction. Your muscle will expand, contract, and shake. My spasticity is gone because I had surgery 10 years ago to take care of it, called the rhizotomy, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I hit my leg and it started shaking like this. So my leg's shaking like this, and the teacher's staring at my leg. I hit my other leg and it's shaking like this. I now look like the drummer for Hootie and the Blowfish. I flip out of my desk, go into a fake epileptic seizure. My buddy picks me up, throws me over his shoulders, grabs my crutches and says, it's his medication, I'll take care of it. We book out of class and go get a donut. Like the geniuses we were in 10th grade, we decide this worked once, let's try it again. So a few days later, we're doing this again. What we didn't know was the assistant principal, who's now the superintendent for Lowell Schools, Mr. Burt Blakey, was standing looking in through the window from the hallway watching this go on. And as I walked out of class with my buddy, I'm over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, my legs straight out like a battering ram. I'm laughing so hard I'm drooling down the back of his Kelly green pants. Right into his Argyle socks. And I hear these words, which to this day I've never understood. Tuitel, stop. Why'd he tell me to stop? I wasn't the one walking. Get down to the office now. We went down to the office. He walks in and he says to my buddy, Mahar, get out of here. So my buddy leaves and the principal's looking at me and he says, what are you doing? I says, well, she doesn't respect me like a normal student. And he looks at me and he goes, you're not a normal student, and it has nothing to do with your disability. What you just did was really funny, but you're doing it on my time, and you're doing it on your time, and if you do it again, you're going to get it. Now, this is the problem, son. Somebody pushed you through. You don't understand geometry. We need to put you into a class where they force feed you basic math until you understand it. You see, people are afraid of what they don't understand. And when they're afraid and don't understand and they're embarrassed, that's when they begin to lash out. That's when they begin not to accept. And you're doing that, Mr. Tuitel. So we're going to force feed you basic math, and then we're going to move you on. And then there was another teacher who saw me in a different light. You see, if you know anything about me, what's the one sport that's the greatest sport on this earth? Football. I loved football. When I was done playing rocket football, when they said you can't play organized football here because it's not safe, I decided to lift weights, to swim, to tape knees and ankles, because my mommy told me miracles happen. And someday when my miracle happens, when the magic wand waves and I'm able to get up and walk, I'm going to be ready to play football. I'm going to know the plays. I'm going to be right there. And the coach taught 3 of my classes. And after the first week, he tested us at the end of each week on the material we had learned during the week. And at the end of the first week, he pulled me away. And he said, you got your test back. You bombed it. Someone had the guts to tell me, you're learning disabled. I don't believe in learning disabilities. I believe everyone learns to their own ability, and it's my job to figure out where you're coming from and how best to teach you. Now, my friend, I'm going to give you another chance, but listen very carefully. If you screw this up again, no tutor, because I'm here till 10 o'clock. I'm not going to call your parents. I'll deal with this myself. I'm not going to send you to the principal's office. I will deal with this myself. How am I going to deal with it? If you screw up again, I am going to rip your lungs out. How'd I do in his class? I got an A. You know why I got an A? Because he believed in me and he expected it. Not because that was part of it. I was scared. The man scared me. But I also knew he believed in me. Because if he didn't think I could do it, he wouldn't have pushed me that hard. And I got an A. But you know what? Nobody ever looked at me and said, Johnny, we appreciate your time. We appreciate the energy you put into this. We appreciate how hard you ride that little bicycle. But no matter how hard you push yourself, no matter how many weights you lift, my friend, you're never going to play football. You will never walk because you have spastic ataxic cerebral palsy. We all thought very simply that one day the magic wand would wave. I'd wake up, hop out of bed, jump into my clothes, run downstairs, kiss my mother goodbye, take the short mile walk to school, be the first person at school. For the first day of my life, choose not to be an underachiever. Find myself after school, in the locker room at 3:30, buckle up for the game, march on onto the field, score 4 touchdowns, make 10 tackles, and go out with the cutest cheerleader in school. That was my dream, and this is reality. On the final Friday of my senior year, during football season, I woke up. I dragged my lifeless legs out of bed. I crawled downstairs to where my mother and little brothers dressed me. A little yellow school bus picked me up. I was 17 years old, and I couldn't put on my own underwear, and I had to be driven to school. I was the only kid bused in the district. And as the lift brought me down, I began my final Friday as a member of the East Grand Rapids football team. The day was spent like many others, and I found myself after school at 3:30 in that locker room. My job was to get the equipment ready, tape knees and ankles, and ironically, the first person I taped was my little brother. The coach walked in. He thanked each senior for what they had given him. And when he walked up to me, he wasn't peering through a gray face mask, and he simply said, I'm sorry. It was tradition that that team walk out behind me. They walked out behind me as a sign of respect because I was slower than most, everyone except the right guard. And as they left, I said, go on without me, I'll be right there. And as they walked out of the locker room, I stood by myself, surrounded by white cinder block walls, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and on those white cinder block walls, in black indelible paint, were the names of all the previous champions that had been there before me. You see, if you win a championship at East, more important than the trophy you bring home is your name on that wall. And if you looked at the year before, you saw my name. You saw my little brother's name. Behind his name, there was a number. Behind my name, 3 letters. MGR period. Abbreviation for what? Manager. And for the first day of my life, it didn't matter that we won or lost. I walked out onto that field. We won, as we usually do. I went home alone, and I sat at a bar stool where it separated our kitchen from our dining area. My sister walked in. It was late. She flipped on the light. It illuminated above my head, the only light in the room on. She walked over, and she said, what are you doing up? And she got closer. She said, what's wrong? And I said, Elsa, I'm never going to walk. And she took her finger and hit my chest and said, you're Johnnie Tuitel. You can do anything. And she walked away. Take a close look. I'm Johnnie Tuitel. I can do a lot. More than is probably good for me. And of all the achievements that you heard in the beginning of this presentation, in my introduction, the one thing that it doesn't say is that he can walk. Because you know what? I will never walk. I'll never know the joy of simply stepping into the batter's box and making contact with the ball. I'll never know the joy of making a hit on a football field. I'll never know the joy of walking through the sand on the beach, holding hands with the one I love. I'll never know the joy of playing football with my son the way it's supposed to be played. And the amazing thing is, it doesn't matter. And you say, wait a minute, time out. You've been speaking for the last 40 minutes and now you just tell us, oh well, poof, doesn't matter? That's just the way it is? No, I'm not going to say that. I mean, there were moments from that period to now that were miserable. There were choices I made that were terrible. One of them, it was dating, okay? Dating is tough for anybody. What a drag. So I'm speaking in a place called Western Michigan University. And as I'm speaking, this lady comes out of the audience. Her face pops out of the audience. She had the most beautiful skin I'd ever seen. Her hair was red, her eyes were blue, and she was staring right at me. And after about 30 seconds, everyone in the room just kind of went away. You could see them in the room, but you couldn't make out who they were. And all I focused on was this beautiful woman. And when I finished the presentation, she walked up, clapping. It was the only single standing ovation I'd ever gotten. She reached her hand out and she said, "That was the most beautiful presentation. I felt as if you were speaking right at me." I was! We talked for an hour. She said, "I have to leave." And I said, "Can I carry your books to the car?" "Sure, no problem." "Why?" "Well, I've never done that. I'd like to." "Okay, whatever blows your hair back." So I got in my manual chair, I put her books on my lap, and I wheeled out the back door. And there was a step. And I looked up and I said, "Oh, dear God, not now. Don't let the chair flip over. That just wouldn't be cool." And I popped a wheelie. And I landed on all four wheels. Yes! And I wheeled her to her car. I opened her door, closed her door. She rolled down her window. I handed her her books. And with a wink and a smile, she drove away. License plate number FMZ 174. And as she drove off into the distance, reality sank in. Title? You didn't ask her for her phone number. Her last name's Baker. You're never going to find her. Now I'm completely bummed. The next morning, I'm taking a shower. Now, with cerebral palsy, showers for me are like Special Olympics events. Little joke there, it's okay. So the phone starts ringing. Now the water's warm, the air is cold. Am I going to get out of the shower? No. But the phone keeps ringing and ringing. So I dive out of the shower, completely naked and wet like a salamander, crawl to the phone. Nice visual, huh? And I grab the phone. No matter how much pain you're in, it's always a great day because you're alive. "Good morning, Johnnie Tuitel. Hi, this is Martha. Wow. How'd you find me?" "You're the only title spelled Tuitel in the phone book." "Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to bother you, but you're not bothering me. I couldn't sleep last night, Johnny. All I could think about was you." Wow. Cool. This doesn't happen to me. It happens to my brother, the football player. It happens to my sister a lot. But it doesn't happen to me. She's my sister. I can say that. Just a joke, Rodney. She says, "Will you have dinner with me? I'll buy you a restaurant." So we had dinner. We began dating. And as we began dating, we grew to know each other. She was an athlete. She was everything that I couldn't be. Plus, she was cuter than I was. And I was falling in love with her. And she came to me and said, "Would you like to go to my parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner?" "Yeah. The three things I love the most: football, food, and you. Yeah." In that order. "Yeah, I'll go." All right. Don't make me get up. Because it'll get ugly. Because I'll fall. So we drove to her parents' house. And as I got out of the car onto my crutches, I walked in through the back door. Her sister greeted me with a kiss. Her brother shook my hand. Her father shook my hand and didn't say anything. Her mother walked out from the back of the house, sat down for a few moments, looked up at me and said, I told her not to do this. I'm sorry, you're not welcome here. My daughter is not going to marry a cripple. I agree. Now, I stood up, I walked out of the house, and I leaned up against her car and waited. And I heard words, a lot of words, some I can't repeat. And Martha threw the door open and walked out, and she saw me and I was crying for the first time because I couldn't walk. Literally. And we decided to go to my parents' house, where the greeting was completely different. My mother said, welcome, 2 more plates. And she looked at me, and I hadn't cried for about 2.5 hours. And she said, what's wrong? And Martha turned to her and told her the story. And my mother turned to me with a smile and said, let's go firebomb their house. And I said, no, Ma, it's Thanksgiving. Let's wait till tomorrow. And Martha was scared. She didn't know we were kidding. However, that day, and on that day, I knew that that relationship wasn't going to last. And on a Sunday morning, the week after Easter, Martha told me to get out of her life. We met for a cup of coffee. She said, get out of my life. Don't ever come back. I hate you. I hate your disability. I hate what your disability has done to my family. Get out of here. And I drove away. And I vowed that day I was never going to date again. I was going to buy a red pickup truck, a golden retriever, drive down the freeway of life, and listen to oldies Bob Seger for the rest of my life. However, 15 minutes of Bob Seger is just about enough. And I got over it pretty quick. And as I got home, the phone rang, and it was Martha. And she said, will you come back? I need to talk to you. And you know what I said? I said no. Because no matter how much you love somebody, if you haven't made the commitment to stay with them, and you're not married, if they don't want you, you leave. Because you're going to set yourself up for trouble. Because they didn't want me because I was different. And so I left. And a few months later, I'm speaking at Bowling Green University, and as I finished the presentation, a young lady came out of the audience. She said, you're wonderful, I'm going to marry you. And I tore out of Ohio so fast it was unbelievable. See ya! Woo! I think I learned to walk that day. What I didn't know was she was a student at this little trade school in Grand Rapids called Calvin. I went to Hope. Calvin. So she starts stalking me. She cuts little letters out, sends me letters, and I'm like, okay, look, I'll take you to lunch. So I took her to Yesterdog. And we sat at figuring, then she won't want to date me again. So we're at Yesterdog, and she says, you know what, I hate your disability, I hate the fact that you're in a wheelchair, but I'd rather be with you the way you are than not with you at all. Wow, have you been practicing? No one ever said that to me before. You know what I mean? It was always, you can do whatever you want as long as you put your mind to it, which is a bunch of hooey. Because the one thing I want to do is play football, and you know what? I'm not going to do it. That's just the way it is. I mean, I fell off the toilet. Come on. And she said, you'd make a pretty good husband and a great father. What do you mean pretty good? Well, you're a guy. So we were married. And 5 years ago, my father and I stood in the same hallway where I was born 30 years ago. And he said, 30 years ago, I stood here and prayed to God to spare your life. And now you've given me a grandson. I've never been more proud. Wow. And you know what? When I woke up this morning and I crawled out of bed and I fell off the toilet, as I'm pulling myself up, my 5-year-old came up and said, do you need help? And even though I didn't, I said, yeah, come on. And together, he pulled me to my knees. And he said, I'll get your towel for you. And I climbed into the shower. And as he handed me my towel, he said, I missed you last night, Daddy. I had a board meeting, and I didn't get to see him. I said, I missed you too. I love you, man. I've got a new poem for you when I get out of the shower. And I got out of the shower, and he told me some poem about a pickle. And the cool thing is, when you take the focus off yourself and put it on what truly matters, it changes your life forever. We cannot make people believe and think the way we want them to. We have to allow them the opportunity. We have to give them the information. We have to let it go. We have to accept people for who they are. And if they don't accept us back, we need to move on and not lash out at them. Because those people, no matter how hard you push, they're not going to learn unless they want to. And that's where change begins. And the beauty is, change began for me after I had the surgery to take away my spasticity. I started an organization after I was told they took away all this shakiness I had. I had to go to Los Angeles, California. And I came back and I'm at Mary Free Bed Hospital, which, by the way, is a stupid name for a hospital because it's very expensive. So I'm at this hospital, and the doctor says, you need a new wheelchair, a new rigid frame wheelchair. I had 2 forms of insurance. I got denied for various reasons. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm mad. And I'm like, I can do 2 things. I can sue the insurance company, which in my mind is pointless, because you're not going to get your wheelchair. It's going to take 3 years. Or I can take that same energy and the same amount of money and start a nonprofit organization that buys wheelchairs for people who can't get them for various reasons. Thanks. It's not that big a deal, but thanks. So, this is the cool thing. We do all the legwork. I meet George. Finally meet George. He gets me organized. Thank you, George, because I needed it, and I still do. And we give away the first wheelchair at our first board meeting to a young lady who was a student at Calvin. She was walking in to her home on Lake Drive and heard some noise upstairs, went upstairs to see what was going on, and found that her neighbor was stabbing her roommate. As a good roommate, she jumped on the attacker's back, pulled him off, he threw her down, stabbed her 64 times, cut her throat, and left her for dead. She lived. She's a paraplegic. She's in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. He's in jail for the rest of his life. She said, my life is better because I'm in a wheelchair. Wow. She's married to a friend of mine. She's got 2 kids. She works every single day. She doesn't complain. She never says, someone took this away from me. She says, God gave me a second chance, and I'm going to live it as hard as I can and have a good time. Her wheelchair was breaking down. We ran into her, literally. That's why her wheelchair broke. I ran down. So she said, but my insurance company will only buy me 1 chair for the life of the policy. That's the way it's set up. And I can't get new insurance because of my disability. I get too many blood transfusions. I don't qualify. So we bought her a new wheelchair. And when we gave away that first wheelchair, as we drove home, George said, this is a pretty cool job. And you know what? It did something else. When I gave away the first wheelchair, I knew why God put me in a wheelchair. And it was okay. It was well with my soul. When you take the focus off yourself and put it on what truly matters, it changes your life forever. And if you look at me and know this, I will never walk, but that's okay. 35 years ago, a doctor made a simple mistake that probably saved my life. He took away my legs. But the cool thing is, he didn't get my heart. He didn't get my mind. Well, maybe a little bit. And he can't have my soul, because that's not mine to give. With that, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. Go out and make a difference. Peace. Yeah!
Beautiful. Let's hear it for Johnnie Tuitel.